Okay, 3.2, compound statements and connectives. Simple statements are sentences that convey one idea with no connecting words. Remember that from the last section. Statements formed by combining two or more simple statements are called compound statements. Words called connectives are used to join simple statements to form a compound statement. Connectives include words such as and, or, if then, and if and only if. We need to be able to understand the logic of such statements to analyze information correctly. A conjunction is a compound statement formed by connecting two simple statements with the word and. Okay? Then it's symbolized like this. That's the and symbol for logic. Notice it's very similar to the and symbol for set notation. Same way, our or symbol for logic will look like this, and notice the similarity to the or symbol for set notation. So to help you remember which is which, if you already have your set notation down, that should help you with your logic notation. Now, the English language has a variety of ways to express the connective and. And this table, again, remember your tables can all be found from Chapter 3 in a handy document in your Canvas classroom to help while you're studying and doing your homework. So notice the symbolic statement is all the same. But in English, we can say P and Q, P but Q, P yet Q, and P nevertheless Q. Here's some examples. It is after 5 p.m. and they are working. It is after 5 p.m. but they are working. It is after 5 p.m. yet they are working. It is after 5 p.m. nevertheless they are working. Notice that all of these imply the exact same thing, that it's after 5 p.m. and they are still working. So it's really the English that's going to give us fits in this section, if anything. Not the math, it's going to be the English we're going to have to be careful with. Okay, a disjunction is a compound statement formed by connecting two simple statements with the word or. P or Q, and here's the symbol for that, like we mentioned in the previous slide. So the connective or can mean two different things. We've got the exclusive or, which means one or the other, but not both. For example, the menu states that you can have soup or salad. Try to convince the waiter that you get both for the same price. No, soup or salad, one or the other, but not both. The inclusive or means either one or both. For example, you could say you're going to Walmart or Target. So you could go to Walmart or you could go to Target, but there's nothing stopping you from going to both of them simply because you said you're going to Walmart or Target. In mathematics, we always mean the inclusive or. So the compound statement P or Q always means P or Q or both. A conditional statement is a compound statement formed by connecting two simple statements with if-then. Okay, if P, then Q. And here's the symbol for that, it's an arrow. Conditional statements in English often omit the word then and simply use a comma. When then is included, the comma can be included or omitted. In a conditional statement, the statement before the connective is called the antecedent, and the statement after the connective is called the consequent. So if the antecedent, then the consequent. Another one that's not in our list down here is we could interpret this as implies. The antecedent implies the consequent. So this table shows some of the common ways to translate if P, then Q into English. Again, it's going to be the English that we're going to have to be particularly careful of. Okay, notice all of the symbolic statements are the same, but we could say if P then Q. For example, If a person is a father, then that person is a male. Q if P, a person is a male if that person is a father. P is sufficient for Q. Being a father is sufficient for being a male. Q is necessary for P. Being a male is necessary for being a father. P only if Q. A person is a father only if that person is a male. And only if Q, P. Only if a person is a male is that person a father. Now notice when we use the ifs. If P, if P. If you have the word if in your sentence, then that goes with the antecedent automatically. Notice even though they've listed the Q first here, because the if is before the P, when I write it, I would write P, K, then Q. Unless we use the words only if. Okay? Only if means I'm talking about the consequent. So no matter which order that the English is stating, if I use only if, that's the consequent, and it must go second. So the Q is second. Okay, notice that reversing the antecedent and consequent in a conditional statement that is true may result in a statement that is not necessarily true. For example, if a person is a father, then that person is a male. That's not the same as if a person is a male, then that person is a father. However, some true conditional statements are still true when the antecedent and consequent are reversed. That's a biconditional statement. Biconditional. And it's a compound statement formed by connecting two simple statements with if and only if. P, if and only if. Q. Okay, and that's symbolized by the double arrow. Okay, so this chart shows some common ways to translate P, if and only if into English. Okay, we've got, notice again, all the symbolic statements are the same. But in English, we could say P, if and only if Q. A person is an unmarried male if and only if that person is a bachelor. Q, if and only if P. A person is a bachelor if and only if that person is an unmarried male. If P then Q, and if Q then P. If a person is an unmarried male, then that person is a bachelor, and if a person is a bachelor, then that person is an unmarried male. P is necessary and sufficient for Q. Being an unmarried male is necessary and sufficient for being a bachelor. Q is necessary and sufficient for P. Being a bachelor is necessary and sufficient for being an unmarried male. Parentheses in symbolic statements indicate which statements are to be grouped together. For example, this notation right here means the negation of the entire statement. By contrast, this notation means that only the statement P is negated. We read this as it is not true that P and Q. We read this as not P and Q. Not P and Q. Unless parentheses appear in a symbolic statement, this symbol negates only the statement that immediately follows it. When expressed symbolically, parentheses are used to indicate which simple statements are grouped together. When expressed in English, commas are used to indicate the groupings. Here's a table that illustrates the groupings using parentheses in symbolic statements and commas in English statements. Again, it's going to be that English we got to really be careful of. Okay, so notice here, because I have this first two simple statements combined into a compound statement in parentheses, that's what we group together. Okay, if P and not Q before the comma, and then not R on the other side of the comma. In this case, the not P implies not R is what gets grouped together, and so the Q is the only thing before the comma, and if not P, then not R on the other side of the comma. The statement in this first row is an if-then conditional statement. Okay, the statement in the second row is an and conjunction. Notice that when we translate the symbolic statement into English, the simple statements in parentheses appear on the same side of the comma. If a symbolic statement appears without parentheses, statements before and after the most dominant connective should be grouped. Below is a list of the dominants of connectives. So your negation is your least dominant. Your conjunction and disjunction have the same level of dominance. So I must have parentheses when working with those. In other words, if I had P and Q or R, I would have to have parentheses. Right now, this is indeterminable as to the meaning. So I could either put parentheses around the first grouping or the second grouping to determine I've now made this a conjunction, an and statement. On the other hand, if I had an if-then with a conjunction, I don't really need those parentheses because the dominants of connectives tell me that this is grouped together automatically. Right? This is more dominant. This is an if-then statement. It implies that the P and Q are automatically grouped together. If it's supposed to be a conjunction statement, then I must have parentheses around that if-then part to indicate that this is an actual and statement. And then, of course, the most dominant is the biconditional. So let's go look at some problems now, if we've got all that down, and see if we can figure this stuff out, this English stuff out. Okay, so if P and Q are the following simple statements, this is an alligator, and Q is this is a reptile, we're going to write each one in symbolic form. So this is an alligator, and this is a reptile. Okay, P represents this is an alligator, and Q represents this is a reptile. So P and Q. This is an alligator, and this is a reptile. This is a reptile, and this is not an alligator. So this is a reptile needs to come first, which is Q, and this is not an alligator. This is a reptile, and this is not an alligator. This is not an alligator, but it's a reptile. Remember, but is one of the equivalent ways to write and, so I need to remember that to know this is an and statement. So this is not an alligator, but it's a reptile. Okay, this is not an alligator, and it's a reptile. This is an alligator, or it's a reptile. This time it's a disjunction. So this is an alligator, or it's a reptile. This is an alligator, or it's not a reptile. This is an alligator, or it's not a reptile. Okay, here's an if-then. If this is an alligator, then this is a reptile. So if this is an alligator, then this is a reptile. If this is not an alligator, so if this is not an alligator, then this is not a reptile. This is not an alligator if it's not a reptile. Notice where my if is. Okay, this is not an alligator if it's not a reptile. So when I'm putting this in my symbolic form, this has to come first. Your if has to come first. So if it's not a reptile, is not Q. Okay, then it's not an alligator. Oh, why do I have an R up here? Not a reptile. That should be a Q. Sorry, guys. Okay. Okay, let's go back to this one. If it's not a reptile, so that has to go first, not Q, then it's not an alligator. Okay, this one says this is a reptile only if. Okay, remember our only if. If it's only if instead of just if, then it's talking about the consequent. So this stays in this order this time. This is a reptile. This is a reptile. Okay, only if it's not an alligator. This is not a reptile if and only if. Okay, if and only if, that's my double error. So not a reptile if and only if it's not an alligator. Being a reptile is necessary and sufficient. Again, I have both of them, necessary and sufficient, so that's my double arrow. Being a reptile is necessary and sufficient for being an alligator. All right. Let's look at the next set. Okay. This time we want to write each symbolic statement in words. And since I'm an awful writer with this pen, on most of them we may just say it. I'll try to say it slowly, and you can pause and go back if you want. So P is, it is July 4th. Q, we're having a barbecue. R, we go to the beach. All right, not P and Q. Not P and Q. It is not July 4th, and we are having a barbecue. It is not July 4th, and we're having a barbecue. Here's an if then. If P, then not Q. So if it is July 4th, then we are not having a barbecue. Here's an if and only if, a biconditional. P, if and only if, not Q. So it is July 4th, if and only if we are not having a barbecue. Not Q or P. We are not having a barbecue, or it is July 4th. Okay, this one, remember, when it's outside the parentheses, it is read, it is not true that. So, it is not true that we are having a barbecue, or it is July 4th. It is not true that we are having a barbecue, or it is July 4th. Okay, this one is not P and not Q. It is not July 4th, and we are not having a barbecue. It is not July 4th, and we are not having a barbecue. Okay, I've got some parentheses here, so these I might write because we need to make use of a comma. All right, this is grouped together, making this an if-then statement. So if all this, comma, then this. So P and Q. It is July 4th. It is July 4th, and we are having a barbecue. Oh, I'm sorry. If it is July 4th. If it is July 4th, and we are having a barbecue, then we go to the beach. Then we go to the beach. And those parentheses help me determine where my comma goes. Same thing on this one. It is July 4th, and if we're having a barbecue, then we go to the beach. So this one is, it is July 4th, and if we're having a barbecue, then we go to the beach. So look at the difference between these two sentences and these two symbolic statements. Okay, again, this one is just more than two connectives, so without parentheses, it automatically tells me that here's where my grouping is. So this is not our, we do not go to the beach. Sorry, I don't know what's up with me today. So if, because it's an if then, if we do not go to the beach, and on an if then you can choose to omit or include the comma. If we do not go to the beach, then it is not July 4th, or we are having a barbecue. All right, let's see what else we have. For the following simple statements, write each compound statement in symbolic form. Okay, so P is the temperature outside is freezing, Q is the heater is working, R the house is cold. If the temperature outside is freezing or the heater is not working, then the house is cold. Pay attention to the comment. If the temperature outside is freezing or the heater is not working, so that needs to go in parentheses. If the temperature outside is freezing or the heater is working, then the house is cold. Okay, on the second one, find the comma. Right. Okay, so the house is cold. If and only if the temperature outside is freezing, so here's my if and only if, the temperature outside is freezing and the heater isn't working. All right, so the temperature outside is freezing and the heater isn't working. Number 3. Here's the comma. So if the heater is working, Q. If Q, then the temperature outside is freezing. The temperature outside is freezing if and only if the house is cold. Now notice on this number 3, if I didn't have the parentheses in here, then that's a different interpretation. On these two, really, it's the same interpretation because we have our dominance of connectives, right? But this one, this is a more dominant connective, but not in the way the statement is written. All right, so try that. Let me know if you have any questions. See you in the next round.